So let's get started with the basics.
So just in time comes from Toyota. To understand where it comes from, you need to go back to the shop floor of Toyota and see how they rebuilt the company after the Second World War into a very powerful automotive company, as we all know.
And what about just-in-case approach that you mentioned in the paper?
Just in case was kind of then the way maybe the automobile companies were running the factories before that.
The popular media blamed NJIT for chip shortages. So what key misunderstandings drove that narrative?
Let's look at toilet paper, for example. It's a little bit easier to for many people to relate to. A Toyota manager in the UK once told me, and I found this very fascinating. A person asked them, "Where are your suppliers?" And he said, "Come with me." And they went up to the roof of the factory, and he said, "Now you can see my suppliers." I think just in time is a principally good thing for everybody to pursue. Practically not always feasible, we just talked about that, but principally good. And I think the world needs more just in time.
All right, welcome to Operational Excellence in Technology podcast, sponsored by Productions and Operations Management Society, where we unpack the latest research in a way managers can put into practice. I'm your host, Shubham Gupta, and today we are discussing strategies to manage inventory in turbulent times with Professor Netland, who is a full professor of Productions and Operations Management from ETH Zurich in Switzerland. Whether you're juggling supplier disruptions, pandemic setbacks, or shifting customer demand, you will learn how to tune your operations for both efficiency and resilience. So let's get started. Welcome to the podcast, Professor Netland. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Shubham. It's my pleasure to be here on your podcast.
Thank you. Before we dive into the research itself, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Many listeners may have never heard of these terms, so let's get started with the basics. Could you explain in plain language what is just-in-time strategy and how it differs from what we call just-in-case strategy?
Thanks so much. I'd be happy to do so. So just-in-time comes from Toyota. Today we're going to talk quite a bit about just-in-time. To understand where it comes from, you need to go back to the shop floor of Toyota and see how they rebuilt the company after the Second World War into a very powerful automotive company, as we all know. And what basically they did is they bought the two presses from the US, car presses, and they did as in America. They pressed huge volumes of body parts and stored them. What they, however, quickly figured out is that this way, if you do it this way, you hide quality errors, you get very long lead times, and you run out of space. So the thing they figured out then is that if they do single-minute exchange of die, reducing the batch sizes and supplying the assembly line just in time with the parts they need, when they need it, in the right quality, they will have a much more productive and efficient production system. So that's where just in time come from, the shop floor of Toyota. And then they take this system further and further out from the factory, integrates their suppliers, and so on and so on.
And what about just-in-case approach that you mentioned in the paper?
Just in case was kind of then the way maybe the automobile companies were running the factories before that, with huge amounts, large batches, producing huge amounts of products, storing for months, and maybe also storing them or putting them on the shop floor in huge batches. And then, of course, it's very hard to do first in, first out. You're hiding quality errors. And once you find one, well, it's 4 months since you produced the part. So this is one of the key points with just-in-time is actually that it drives quality improvement.
Perfect. So that was a good introduction. Now that we have got the core concepts down, I'm curious, what first motivated you to study just-in-time in the context of recent global disruptions like the pandemic and chip shortages? And was there a particular incident or data point that made you think, oh, we need to look at this again?
Absolutely. So, just-in-time is a kind of an old concept, and many operations management researchers and practitioners have heard about it for 20, 30 years and tried to do it. The big disruption, of course, that happened was COVID, which in March 2020 put many supply chains at halt. And consumers even, couldn't find toilet paper in the shops. They were running out of all kind of different things. Semiconductor crisis a little bit prior to this as well in automobile companies made people look for what's the cause of these disruptions. And maybe journalists in search for a simple solution pointed to the just-in-time concept, which to some extent is a fragile system when it's set up, because if you truly run out of your inventory, well, it takes time to produce things. So that incident, the COVID pandemic basically, many journalists say things like, automobile companies are retiring from 30 years of just-in-time, right? Or just-in-time is dead, just in case is the new model. These were in many of, professors and maybe experts in lean and Toyota production system misconceptions on behalf of the journalists. But that at least motivated our research, which was a good thing.
Since you mentioned media, I agree, the popular media blamed JIT for chip shortages. So what key misunderstandings drove that narrative?
Let's look at toilet paper, for example. It's a little bit easier to for many people to relate to. There's actually, and newspapers wrote that just-in-time is to blame for toilet paper shortage. Fact is, no. An interesting anecdote is the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, who went out to the media and said on national TV, "We have 10 years of toilet papers in stock in the Netherlands."
Wow.
So don't tell me that there's a toilet paper shortage. There's other things that's happening, is breakages in logistics and supply chain, and a human aspect, hoarding. So everybody buy, and then it gets shortages in short time, and this got very visible. So in fact, to answer your questions more broadly, most companies are not running just-in-time supply chains. They have never. And in fact, I think many of the industries we look at have become less driven by just-in-time over the years with globalization, fragmentation of supply chains. So this is a misconceptions maybe on behalf of the media.
That's a great segue. So you mentioned misconceptions. In your paper, you set out to debunk 5 common misconceptions about just-in-time. What's the most surprising myth you uncovered, and why is it misleading?
Okay, I think maybe here I'd like to say that this is not my work alone. Is that okay with you? So, and maybe I also tell a little bit of the history of this paper and how it come about. Because what I think is really cool about it is that it's a true child of the POMS Society.
Okay.
I'm now a president of the POMS College of Operational Excellence, and I've been involved with that since 2017. And during COVID, we started webinars. The second webinar was called Just-in-Time or Just-in-Case, motivated by the things we just talked about. And we had a panel consisting of Tom Choi, Nada Sanders, Mohan Sudi, Stefan Wagner. And it was moderated by Rashna Shah. I was also there. Nobody could see me. I was doing the technologies, a little bit like you're doing today. And then after this webinar, which was very well appreciated, tons of comments online, many online visitors. I think we had 600 while it was going on. We've decided there seems to be, misconceptions and misunderstandings of just-in-time. So maybe it's time to revise or one more time what is just-in-time and describe how maybe it is different today when the times are more disruptive, more turbulent. So based on that webinar, we started to write this paper. And you asked me as well your question, what was the most surprising thing? Well, I actually learned quite a bit just sitting and listening to these people.
Okay.
So the most surprising thing to me was how different the views are about what just-in-time is. Because this panel consists of supply chain researchers, risk researchers, forecasters, and everybody take a different view on it. I come from the manufacturing world. It's also why I explained just-in-time based on the Toyota setting. But coming together, I think made us realize the complexity of the topic and also a little bit what we can do to move forward with it.
Perfect. So in your paper, you also examine the specific conditions under which just-in-time really shines. In everyday terms, how can a manager tell if their operations is a good fit for JIT?
Yeah, good question. And I think it's also one of the things that we are talking about. One of the myths we are busting is that, first of all, we think just-in-time is good. We think companies should look at just-in-time as something to strive towards. But there's reality. Okay, something called cost. There's technical complexity. There's geographical proximity. Maybe we talk about that later. Which means that most supply chains should probably not be set up as just-in-time.
Okay.
So if you have very high volume, very predictable products, You can do just in time. It's very easy. It's actually so easy you maybe also not need it. You can have some buffer stock and it's very predictable. If you have extremely high variable production, engineered to order and these type of things, nobody would like to talk about it just in time. Okay, you deliver just in time, but everything is engineered after you get the order. And you need customized supply chains for this type of things. It's maybe in the middle where you have the high volume and quite some variability. The just-in-time shines.
Right. And I agree with you that most supply chains are not set up for just-in-time. They'll have to adapt their operations to be able to use just-in-time. So in your paper, you mentioned 4 of these adaptations. You mentioned buffers, use of segmentation. You also mentioned digital tools and collaboration. Which one adaptation should leaders tackle first? And what simple step would you recommend?
Yeah, maybe all of them. It will be easy to say maybe, of course, do the buffer and segmentation before you do digitization. But today, that would also not be good advice.
Right.
I think you need to do all of them. And they can also reinforce each other.
They had the budgets to just do one. So
and then you do a quarter of each of them. Okay. So let me give you an example. Automobile industry, say Toyota, okay, that's the prime example of just-in-time, and it works on their shop floors. Actually, it works also for the suppliers who are in the proximity. An anecdote again, a Toyota manager in the UK once told me, and I found this very fascinating, a person asked them, where are your suppliers? And he said, come with me. And they went up to the roof of the factory, and he said, now you can see my suppliers. So this shows, of course, how many industries are set up like this. Well, not many. Even in a company like Toyota, just in time may be not perfect, but closer to perfect on the shop floor. Maybe 1-2 hour buffer, that was one of those words, right, between supplier and an assembly plant. But if you then go to the next tier supplier, the next tier again, it's not just in time. They use consolidation centers for these type of things. That's huge warehouses where they supply the downstream plants just in time, but everything upstream is batch production, cost efficient, high volume production. So also in automotive industry, it's not like everything is just in time.
Right. And we mentioned Toyota a lot. Let's talk some other real life stories. Can you share a quick example that shows JIT in action other than Toyota?
Yeah, absolutely. So Toyota is the example. Maybe we heard about it also. Yeah. So of course, other automotive companies have also implemented just in time. That's not a question. That's the model. That's the best practice in automotive industry. But also outside, there are industries that have been extremely good with taking advantage of this concept. One famous example that people often teach is Dell computers, where people, they don't start to assemble things before you put in the order. And once you put in the order and pay, they start to assemble, and they do it quick, just in sequence, and everything kind of just in time from the point of view of the single factory.
Right. And in addition to saving them costs, they can offer more customization to their customers.
Yeah, it's kind of brilliant.
Right. It's very brilliant. Have you seen any smaller suppliers or mid-sized firms use these ideas successfully? And what did that collaboration look like?
Yeah. Let me first talk about another example, which is kind of a scale-up and now a global company. But it's interesting to see how startups adopt these type of ideas to get an edge over the competitors. The company is HelloFresh. It's the world's largest meal kit company in the world. Started out of Berlin in Germany, and they are really operating just in time. And you can imagine in an industry with fresh goods and high customization, like they do, because different customers order different meals within a standardized, palette of options. Running just in time is extremely important.
And when HelloFresh came out, I tried it, and it turned out to be a very good learning experience of new recipes. So, yeah, I didn't know they were using just in time. So good to know. Research rarely goes exactly as planned. In this paper, what was the biggest obstacle that you faced while writing this paper, and how did you work through it?
So multi-author papers aren't always easy, right? And particularly when people come from different areas or have different views. But while this is the challenge of working together, it was clearly also the stronghold of the paper. This paper would not have been as strong if it was written by one of us or one perspective. It's the way we brought things together, I think, that makes this paper unique. And the way to work through it, well, meetings, trying to split the workload, somebody taking initiative, and I think this author team did that very well. It was actually fantastic to work with them.
That's great. That's a challenge that we all face.
Yeah.
Was there a finding along the way that completely surprised you or challenged your initial assumptions?
Yes, there was. I learned a lot from this project.
Okay.
And I think it relates to me coming from my point of view with my biases. I'm an OPEX person, a lean person, and we kind of a little bit indoctrinated to think that just-in-time always works or everybody should pursue it. And some of the people on the panel and my co-authors challenged this assumption with viewpoints that convinced me that my initial assumption was wrong. So that's amazing. Not only do you get to publish a paper in POM, but you learn something new. So
yeah. You mentioned the role of some of the latest innovations in your paper, like digital twins, Internet of Things, and the rise of AI. Which technology do you believe will have the biggest impact on just-in-time over the next few years?
Yeah. So first, to answer that question, I'd like to say that I think just-in-time is a principally good thing for everybody to pursue. Okay, practically not always feasible. We just talked about that, but principally good. And I think the world needs more just-in-time because of sustainability reasons, waste reasons, but also efficiency reasons, many other reasons. How do we achieve that? Well, we've never had as good opportunities as we have today with digitalization. To make just-in-time work, we need transparency. So my answer to your question is transparency. And the technologies that can deliver that is, of course, all kind of IoT. It's just connecting ERP system, connecting data, and sharing data. Easier said than done, but if we do, we can suddenly have much more transparency in supply chains. Still, we don't have that at all.
And we can automate the decision-making process using AI.
We can. That's maybe the step after. And let's start first with getting the transparency.
Right. So as companies rethink their supply chain footprints, the two strategies that come to mind, reshoring or regionalizing, how can they keep just-in-time's core benefits while staying resilient?
Okay, that kind of reminds me a little bit of the proximity that is needed for true just-in-time systems to work. It's a little bit of the things we write about in the papers, that when you don't have geographic proximity, or if you have more turbulence, you need to take some actions. And one of them could be keeping buffers, inventory buffers. We know from, of course, Wally Hop and Spearman and factory physics and all these things that matter. But it can also be supply chain segmentation, as we talked about earlier. Just you split the supply chain, making it able to create that resiliency, maybe dual sourcing, China plus one strategies, all of these type of things that reduce the risk of your supply chain.
Dual sourcing is definitely one way to go about it, and some of my work talks about it. If a busy operations leader took just one thing away from your study, what would be the single most actionable tip for the managers listening to us right now?
Don't walk away from just-in-time. Okay, we need more just-in-time. That does not mean no zero inventory. It actually never meant zero inventory. This is a misconception. One of the things we busted in the paper. You say I'm just allowed to say one thing, but I'm going to say a few other things.
Go ahead.
You fit the products that you produce with the just-in-time strategy. We talked about that. Some are batch production. Don't try to make that a single piece flow. There are technical constraints and economical constraints. You have to adjust your just-in-time strategy when the risk is increasing. If there's more turbulence, yep, you need more inventory. Toyota knew this. That's how they came so well through the chip shortage. Could produce 6, 7, 8 months longer than anybody else. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. Just in case, which we now some kind of suggest that it's a very hard thing to do, because if you start like this, and particularly if you're in assembly industries, what parts do you do just in case? You can't make waffles if you don't have milk. So if you then have 1,000 eggs on your shelf, they're going to just turn bad. It's an extremely hard thing to do. So just in time is completely alive. And then maybe to the point then, embrace digitalization in order to create that transparency that is needed to drive just in time going forward.
Yeah, I hope everyone already knows that we need to embrace digitalization. And finally, just to wrap up, is there anything we didn't cover that you would like to share before we sign off?
Just that, just in time is an extremely important concept, of course, of operational excellence. But there's more. And I'm sure you're going to cover many of those things in this podcast. So I would recommend listeners to keep on zooming into your podcast, Shubham, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Tor. Thanks for joining us on Operational Excellence and Technology Podcast. Big thanks to our guest, Tor Netland, for sharing insights on making just-in-time work in today's unpredictable world. If you like this episode, subscribe and share with a colleague who is wrestling with supply chain headaches. Thank you very much.